All right. So, without being able to be prepared for lesson one, but these are general questions, and they were really intended to be kind of introductory to the other material. We'll be looking specifically at the teachings of Jesus and then some of the apostles in the latter part of this. This will only be 6 weeks. The 7th week we'll do what we've been doing is we'll use the Bible class for an adult, I don't know what we're calling it, but a semi-sermon or a combination, kind of a lecture sermon. So this will go for 6 weeks. So we're going to talk about, if I can get, there we are. Lesson one will be Introduction and Jesus on Earth. I'm having a bit of trouble getting that to work. When is Jesus first mentioned in the Bible? And not necessarily by name. Yes. I'm sorry. Genesis. And whereabouts in Genesis? No, I think that's probably right. Let us make man in our image. Okay? Who's the us? All right? It is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. There's no one else you can go to, okay? This is the beginning. There's been no creation within the world. We don't know at that point. Don't think we know, but I assume that angels existed perhaps at that point. But this is a question simply because we're going to get into a few more questions that are going to more or less lay the predicate for what we're going to be studying. So we find in Genesis 1:26, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have. I remember now why I liked having the laptop up here, because I could hit it and read at the same time. But so let them have dominion over the fish. The whole idea here is God is taking counsel. Somebody's taking counsel with somebody else. And who is that? Well, who is it that they're talking about? We're going to make him in our image. So we obviously have a plurality of persons intended, and that would be, I believe, accurately the Godhead. And that's really supported from other passages as well, particularly over in the New Testament. So when did God determine that Jesus would come to earth? Let's talk about that first, and then we'll talk about the purpose. When did God determine that Jesus would come to earth? I'm sorry? Ephesians 1, and what does it say? From the foundations. Okay. This goes all the way back. Sometimes people think this was a late decision by God. First of all, let's understand when we talk about that, God is. He hasn't changed. He doesn't change. We can't understand that concept because we live in a time continuum. We go through life linearly, sequentially. We can't understand of a being, but that is God. And so from the beginning, really before or as soon as, whenever that was, he determined to make man. That's why it's really hard for us to understand. He had determined that his son would have to come. The purpose, what was the purpose? Why did his son have to come? What was God's purpose for man, as far as we know? We can't know everything, but I think we can infer from the Bible. Why did God make man? All right, to serve and glorify him. Have a relationship. Okay. So he wants, go ahead. He wants us to ultimately be with him. He wants us to prepare ourselves to be with him. And so he determined to make us in his image, certainly eternal. We have an eternal soul that was put into a physical body here on earth. And we were given free choice. We were allowed to make our decisions. Adam and Eve were given a command: don't take of the fruit. You can eat of everything else in the garden, but they were free to make the decision. And of course, Satan, God apparently allows to be, because somebody had to be the tempter, had to be the one to try to get and induce man to do something that was wrong. And sure enough, they did what God knew. This, again, it's hard for us to understand. God knew man was going to sin. Well, then he made him sin. No, he didn't make him sin. He gave him the opportunity to make his own choices. But man did, and all men have sinned, men and women, I'm talking about, have sinned and fallen short of what they were supposed to be doing. God knew this was going to happen. And from the beginning, he determined that Jesus was going to come and serve several purposes. And we'll get into that a little bit later. Ephesians 1:4, 1 Peter 1:19, he indeed was foreordained before the foundation of the world. Revelation 13:8, the Lamb that was slain from the foundation of the world. How can that be? I thought Jesus wasn't slain until he hung on the cross. But he's slain from the foundation of the world. How could that be? It's sort of like, I think it's in Jericho, talk about the walls of Jericho. Is that a reference in the New Testament where they talk about it's as good as done? So effectively it's done because God determined it was going to be done. And so we find that reference. The decision wasn't tied to the moment of creation, but it preceded it in God's eternal counsel. This agreement isn't a moment in time, but an eternal reality in God's unchanging will. And again, I think we can get ourselves lost in this idea of eternity and an unchanging God. But we have to some degree understand that, to understand that God doesn't change. He is steadfast. He's firm. He's immovable. He is what he says he is. He's going to do what he says he's going to do. Why did Jesus need to come in the form of man? In the flesh. Why? A lot of reasons, probably. And we're presuming. Go ahead. All right. Okay. All right, so clearly he had to come. He was going to be a sacrifice for us. He was going to come in the form of man. What other things did coming in the form of man allow him to do? He could sympathize with our condition. What about man knowing about God? Did it help us know more about God? Yeah, it did. This is God among us, God with us. Go ahead. Excellent. So he was here to help conquer death and sin and evil, but also that he can be our intercessor. He can be our high priest, one who represents us to God. What about what else can man draw from seeing what Jesus did? What are we to be like? I want to be like him. All right. He gives us a model of how we should be living in holy living. I think we've covered. One more. What about the old law? Huh? He came to fulfill it, okay, and to fulfill prophecy. So I think we've covered them, to reveal God fully to humanity. Remember, this was just go back and think about it. God interacted more directly in the patriarchal age. So there was an interaction that occurred. But after that time frame, and then going into the time frame of the Mosaic age, that was not the way. God instead began to interact through prophets in other ways. What was the purpose of the Old Covenant, according to Galatians? It was a schoolmaster to bring us to Christ, a tutor to bring us to Christ. There's a process of having the world begin to understand God. How do we know there's a God? How do we know about God today? We have His Word. We have the creation that we see and say, well, where did that come from? But as far as really knowing about God, it's from in that He's revealed Himself. But part of that revealing, part of that building up and preparing us took place all the way coming from the patriarchal age, all the way through the Mosaic age. The children of Israel being His chosen people, they were an example. I mean, what did Rahab say about? What did Rahab say when they showed up on the doorsteps of Jericho? See, what did she tell the prophets about Israel and about their God? Why was she ready to pitch in the hat real quick? They knew what God had done to deliver the children of Israel from Egypt. They saw the examples. So even when God was delivering His people, He was also validating Himself to all the people around about. So then we come to the new covenant and the new time frame. So I think we had covered all these to fulfill the law and prophecies, save sinners, atone for sin, model and enable holy living, to conquer death, sin, and evil. Oh, I didn't hit the last one. To inaugurate the kingdom and send the Holy Spirit. Of course, making the perfect sacrifice, that was part of the overall process. But he came and then He left that He might send the Holy Spirit. What was the purpose of the Holy Spirit? The Comforter. To bring to their remembrance all that I've spoken to you, right? They were to come into all truth. So God was doing His final revelation with the apostles. Well, wouldn't that have worked without all this time He spent with the apostles? I mean, He spent 2.5 years, full time, basically, teaching. Wouldn't you have loved to have been there? And yet, I don't know. They were put through a lot. But think about that. So He prepared these apostles. He prepared disciples. Those who were round about were all prepared that they might be able to go on and spread the word and teach it, having been an eyewitness of the one who had come. All right. Why did Jesus, let's see, in summary, the incarnation was essential to God's redemptive purpose building, bridging the divine-human divide, achieving salvation and restoring creation. Though He was in the form of a God, He emptied Himself by taking the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men. Somebody had mentioned that earlier. All right, why did Jesus need to come in the form of man? I'm wrong, I'm still on the wrong one. In the Bible, how do spiritual, heavenly, demonic entities, this is a little more difficult, and I'm not so sure. I had one thought in my mind, and I've been using Grok very effectively. You do have to direct it, but it brought up some things I had not thought about. So, how do the entities interact with humans and the world? Can they communicate directly with man? Is there spiritual warfare ongoing in the world alongside the physical dealings of humans with the wiles of Satan? So I'm kind of laying, we're going to talk about the kingdom, so I'm kind of laying a little bit of the framework for that, Brett. Okay. In Daniel, we find a similar thing between the kings. So there's an ongoing warfare, but think for a minute. Now, every time you've seen, again, I didn't get a chance to fully study this because I've been battling this dizziness. I'm finally just started taking meclizine, and that's helping a good bit. So I haven't got to prepare as much as I would have liked. What do we find when we find the idea of angels? What comes to your mind? Is it a little sparkly thing like Peter Pan? Who was that? Yeah, Tinkerbell. Thank you. Is it a? I guess younger people wouldn't understand that, but most everybody here is a little bit older. So, what do we think of? What do we see in the Bible when we see a mention of angels? How do they appear? Okay, every time I could find, that's what I found. Now, I think there may be some inferences otherwise. Unseen angels, a reference, and there were a couple more, so that threw me for a little bit of a loop. But by and large, what we're seeing is they're coming in the form of a man. Now, here's the thing. They're a spirit, okay, or if they are. I don't know, angels may not. Well, they are too, because it says they came in the form of men. But can you talk to a spirit? We can to the Holy Spirit, but generally, can you see a spirit? Shake hands with it? Give it a hug? Okay. If you weren't in a body, how would you have any sense of the world? How would you have any sense of smell or hearing or sight or any of that stuff? That's all the physical body, right? We've got to have some way that we interact with an angel. And ultimately, this is the same case with Jesus. Now, demons. What do we find about demons? They weren't necessarily limited to humans, were they? Go ahead.
Well, they were active and working throughout
Yes.
the Bible, and the New Testament speaks to some of their actions and what we're supposed to do. And as far as putting up a defense, I think we can deduce that there's still active and working today. That's why some of the things that especially Paul writes to us is important. So in Ephesians, he refers to the prince of the power of the air.
That's right.
Whose spirit is at work in the sons of disobedience, and then later on at the end of the book, he admonishes us, encourages us to put on the whole armor of God. Why? Because he says that so that you can stand against the schemes of the devil, for we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. So, I mean, there's a good example of
Yeah.
the work that they're doing, and
right. Good comments. In Mark 5, you had Jesus casting out demons, but what did they go into? Into pigs, right? Swine. Now, they said, let us go into the swine. Anybody have an idea why that occurred? Why they needed to go into something else? See, that's what causes me to sort of think that they needed to occupy a physical body. Now, a person possessed, I guess, was just that. They weren't running their own show. The demons were. But that was what it caused me to lean toward thinking that really they had to have a physical body. But I'm probably not exactly correct. I think that was true most of the time, but not necessarily all of the time. But they could occupy animals, although apparently that results in them running off a cliff and getting killed, and then I don't know what they do after that. So, but we're warned about not having a empty room all clean and ready for the spirits to come in and possess, that we need to be using what we have for ourselves. So there's a warfare that is going on in this world that is physical in the sense that involves human beings, but spiritual in the sense of the level at which it's being fought. We can't go up and kill a demon, but we can drive them away. We can defeat them. Go ahead. Oh, yeah. And again, these are the things that we don't necessarily fully understand, is even how we operate. When somebody wants to talk about this and that, I say, tell me how your spirit occupies your body. Tell me how the Spirit occupies you. Tell me how you occupy the Spirit. We're in the Spirit, it says. So there are things we don't fully understand, but we do know that we are a spirit and a physical body that will be given an eternal body. Still need a body, apparently, even when we're raised. And so that's about as much as we know. We can't go a whole lot further. All right. Any other thoughts or comments on that? Right. Yeah. We should not make room for it. We should always be on the defense and be prepared. But we have to be ready to battle it. Absolutely. Now, another one I was surprised at. I wrote down a number of these questions, and I thought I knew the answer. Then when I began to do some more research, I didn't necessarily. And you're not going to be able to read this, so I may not either. But simply, so let me summarize this. Heavenly angels are heavenly beings, primarily angels. They act as messengers, protectors, and agents of God's will. Their interactions include physical appearances and touch. Angels sometimes appear in human-like form. Visions, dreams, and voices often communicate non-physically. Again, I suppose that's right. Protection and ministry, invisible as guardians. It's not a made-up term, guardian angels. Other forms, angels appear in visions as non-human forms, like wheels in Ezekiel 1 or winged seraphim in Isaiah 6. Demonic entities, demons or evil spirits, possession and torment, they control human bodies. Temptation and deception influence us invisibly. Physical manifestations or influence cause tangible effects. In conclusion, spiritual entities do not need physical bodies to move or interact. This is from Grock. Their spiritual nature allows free operation with bodily forms used only when they're needed for specific purposes. All right, so is God's sacrifice is in the religions of the world? May not be clear. Is God sacrificed in any other religion for all people, whoever they perceive to be their God. See, that's what I would have answered. And it's not necessarily correct. That surprised me. Let's see if I can get, where is that? Uh-oh. I think I can read it, maybe. So, y'all probably can. I'm sorry. Can anybody read that at all, or too small for everybody? So, Christianity we know, and that was about 30 to 100 BC. Hinduism, Prajapati, correct me anybody, a creator deity sacrificed himself to create the universe and all living beings. I've not confirmed this from Grok, enabling human existence, 1500 to 1000 BC. You'll note that would have been in a time frame that there could have been some knowledge coming from the Jewish people at that point in time that might have influenced that. I'm not sure. Norse mythology. Odin hangs himself on something for 9 days to gain rune knowledge, benefiting gods and humans. He wasn't killed. He was made a sacrifice. In Aztec, they have a sacrifice of their god undergoes trials to create humanity and sustain the cosmos. So again, not necessarily death. Probably only death was the Hinduism. Mayan mythology, the hero twins sacrifice themselves in a ball game against the underworld lords to defeat death. That's 200 BC to 900 AD. But most of these may well have been influenced by the teachings of the true God. And I think if anybody really wanted to trace it back with an honest, open heart about it, not biased against, they would probably find that much of the teaching. Islam is very definitely drawn from greatly from the Jews, because Muhammad lived with the Jews for many years and reflected a lot of the teachings. And in fact, his teaching was to leave the Jews alone, that they were fellow people. But that's not practiced today, is it? All right. Was Jesus God? All right, that's a bad question. Does the Bible indicate that as a baby, Jesus knew all things as God? What about as a child? I'm not sure anybody can give me a perfect answer on this. So you can add what you'd like without being abused, yes. Okay. We have, what's the first time that we have an indication about, wow, there's something kind of special here? In the temple. How old was he? 12? Go ahead.
I was thinking that in Hebrews, I think chapter 5, somewhere it says that Jesus learned obedience
Yes.
to what he suffered.
Right.
I don't know any other way to interpret that. He didn't have all the answers. If he had all the answers, he wouldn't need to learn.
What had to learn? No, that's a real good verse. That's a very good point to make. I think I have that referenced. Luke 2:52, Jesus increased in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man. So he increased in wisdom and in stature. All right. Now and we found that he emptied himself, not recording himself to be on a level with God. So I think from what we find, he was going through development, a typical normal human development. He obviously at some point knew that his father was his father, the Father in heaven. I think that's from some of the things that we find in the Bible. But the reason I'm getting at this is that he is literally coming to earth, taking on the form of man, and growing up, apparently, as a child of the Hebrews, but an intelligent, but a very devout. I must be about my Father's business. He already at the age of 12 realized that responsibility that he had, and they were amazed. The priests and scribes were amazed at a 12-year-old having this kind of discourse with them on their level and possibly beyond their level. Just again, getting a little bit more into the idea of Jesus. No real indication that he had any special knowledge as a child, other than the fact that he was well advanced by the time he was 12 years old. Okay, so I summarized. The list displayed exceptional knowledge. Jesus displayed exceptional knowledge at 12, amazing the scholars, showing divine awareness. His omniscience was present, which is not my comment, but expressed progressively within human limits. That was one of the, I should have quoted who that was, that felt that he actually had human knowledge, or godly knowledge, but it was expressed progressively as he got older. All right, when did Jesus begin his ministry? He was probably about 30 years old. What year was that? Trick question. If you'd asked me when I was growing up, I would say, well, 0, of course. But I mean, he was year AD, 30 AD. But now we know that's not quite right. Probably 26, 27 AD. There was a mistake made at I think there was a Catholic priest, wasn't it, or a monk, that had put together the calendar and had reckoned it and missed by about 3 or 4 years. Once you go back and look at all the different things that were happening, particularly the census that was carried on and some of the different things, they knew pretty much the dates of those and how that would fit. So probably about 30 years old, and I said 27, 28. He was, so why wait? And I'm answering, I'm going to take it back off. Why so late? Wow, 30 years old. I mean, if he was able to discuss this with the scholars at age 12, what went he out there as a boy child teaching the people? And really, we can probably only surmise. But don't, all of this was done in a specific time frame and in an order. Obviously, some of the things that happened specifically was that Rome had come in and taken control of the world by now, and you had roads throughout, you had a common language throughout. There was never a better time for the teaching of Jesus and of Christianity to be spread than in this time frame. Probably there's never been a better time in the history of the world that these things could have occurred. But there were some other things as well, possibly. For the Jew to become let's see, let me make sure of that. I may have it here. I don't have it. But I think you had to be 30 to become a priest, if I'm not mistaken. 30 was considered to be, I think, from what I can gather, about what we consider 18 to be today. But you were not ready to take on strong responsibilities until then. So maybe it was in honor of that. But waiting for human preparation, cultural readiness, John's ministry, remember, that had to be coordinated too, didn't it? How far apart were they born? We know that both were in their mother's wombs at the same time, don't we? Okay, why do we know that? John leapt in his mother's womb right whenever Mary came. So probably about 6 months apart. So that had to all be coordinated. And then God's timing, Galatians 4:4. How did Jesus teach without looking up there? How would you his approach toward teaching the will? Lots of parables. I mean, why? All right. Well, if you lay something out here, and you say, now look, just like that, that's a lot easier to understand, isn't it? All right, what else? They ask questions, and sometimes he asks questions. Yeah, okay. And he finally got to where Sadducees didn't ask him anymore because he asked them one they couldn't answer. They wouldn't answer. Go ahead. Okay. I was out there. Yeah. But I say unto you, try it. Right. And when the people came out and followed him, and they were hungry, what? He felt compassion for them. Okay, he wanted to feed them. Of course, later he comments about, well, you just follow me because you want food, which he did not approve of. All right, so discipleship, that's other inclusivity, all right? Who did he teach to that the apostles didn't want him teaching to? Huh? Samaritans? Who else so? Women too, that's right. One other group. Sinners. Tax collectors, okay? So, he's inclusive, not in the sense we use it today, okay? But inclusive of all people, all humans. Not approving of them doing wrong, but trying to, what did he say? I come, what? Who needed the doctor? The sick, right? And so he came for those who are sick, who are hurting. So compassion, authoritative teaching, inclusivity, miracles. What were the miracles for? That'll wow them. We'll get them to put up the bright lights. We'll put on the show. Okay. This was radical. I think it's hard for us to conceive how radical the teaching was. It was like nothing that had been taught and was being taught. Completely different. And so just kind of like those in India that are out in the boonies and are in a, don't even have a caste, I think, from what I understand. I mean, they're the no people. Think how radical it is for them to hear that there's a God that loves them, just like everybody else. Well, this was radical. And so I think it was important that they be able to confirm, look, oh no, he's just making this stuff up. Well, he raised a dead man. He made a blind man see. He made a lame man walk. Who does that? Well, the Pharisees said, well, it's got to be devil. And then Jesus said, kingdom divided against itself will fall. No, it's not Satan. It's God doing it. All right. So, and fulfilling his mission to save and transform individuals. Go back to He wants us to come home. He wants us to be with Him. And that's the whole purpose. That's what all of this is about. All right, what was the method for, I got ahead of myself a little bit, but it's kind of combined for distributing His message. How is this message going to be conveyed? And was conveyed, not just both when He was on earth and then after. Kind of immediately, what was it? Come see, huh? Yeah, when Jesus was on earth. Okay. What the apostle said? Come see, we have found. Okay, so there were people that talked to other people. And certainly, you expected, in those days, you couldn't get on the radio, TV, no, nothing there. No real opportunity to write notebooks or any of that, okay? Word of mouth. Now, the good news was people were a whole lot more interested in spiritual things back then than we tend to be today because we're diverted in so many different directions and interests in so many different things. So they were interested in talking and discussing. So you would have people talking, okay. What about his apostles? What was the purpose of the apostles? Why did he select out these 12? Huh? Okay. They got to spend at least 2.5 years or so, maybe longer, with him so that they could truly understand the nature and get it reinforced and get it explained and explained again in some instances. But they then would be the ones who had been with him while he walked on earth and could be absolute witnesses of him. But there were a bunch of other people who had also seen Jesus, and they had followed, many of them had followed. So you had a good gathering of people that could teach others. I want you to think about this, though, for a minute. And I had the numbers, and now I've lost them. But by about the year 100, maybe a little after, the word had been really proclaimed in all the known world. And I'm trying to remember the numbers. I had looked up at one time. I think the world population then was 8 or 10 million or so. This is really started from a pretty small group. Well, we started with 5,000 on the day of Pentecost. And what was interesting, of course, they were all in from all parts of the earth worshiping, so they're going to go back home at some point and teach back home again. So that's how it was going to be spread, and it was going to be spread with the apostles. All right, martyrdom likewise in communities, strong Jewish community in Rome, which in turn then people coming through Rome would have the opportunity to be taught there. But the martyrdom confirmed again. And then the preaching and the writings that were going to be done. And then what did we say about the Holy Spirit? Holy Spirit was going to come and bring to their remembrance all that had been, and so that they could indeed teach the truth. Okay. In what regions and areas did Jesus take his ministry? And we're almost out of time. And I've got a map. I may try to get ready to. So did he go to Rome, or did he go to Turkey or any of these other areas? About a 50-mile wide, maybe 100-mile long area is where his teaching was done. Okay, we'll finish up this quickly, and then we'll get into lesson 2 on Wednesday night.